Thank you so much for your time, Pat. I don't want to call you Dr. Davidson or Dr. Pat. I believe, first of all, and like labels actually identify us in a small percentage of our who we really are. And I know I don't really like the question sometimes when people ask me, "Oh, tell me about yourself." So I would say, if somebody wants to learn more about you, I know like if they type your name on Google, there are going to be so many things and so many author, Ph.D. in exercise science and biochemistry. You've been a strongman. You've been an athlete your whole life. But what I want to know more is, who is Pat Davidson? The real.
Oh boy, that's a.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's the essence
I mean,
of what the reality comes. Because you know what? I've been following you for so many years, and I think that, and I've read all your books, and I'm waiting for the new one coming up. And I know there's a lot of struggle, and I know there's a lot of authenticity, and that comes, I need to know that power. Give me some.
well, I think it would be great if I had my therapist on here as well, because she might be able to give you, here's who this guy is. It'll be like a much
Power
more
hour.
accurate. Yeah. But I'd like to think that word that you used, authenticity, is a good one for me, because I think that I'm hopelessly transparent as a person. I almost can't help but fully be myself almost all the time. But I think that it's really interesting. I do think that I'm someone that hates to be pigeonholed. Like, the minute that you try to tell me that I'm a biomechanics guy, I'm gonna swing around the other way and really try to come at you with like some energy systems information. And I think that I'm obstinate. I think I'm stubborn. I think that I'm hardworking. I think that I'm someone that has command of a lot of areas of exercise science overall. And I would say that my probably biggest strength in this industry is actually that I don't think that I'm all that great in any one specialty. I think that what I'm good at is collecting everything and being able to create a holistic model out of it, and be able to understand where things fit relative to each other, and also understand essentially kind of like a prioritized hierarchy of how much does each variable actually matter, so that you don't spend an excessive amount of energy majoring in the minors. Like, these are all important variables. Every single variable is important, but this variable for this particular goal for this particular person is 3% important, whereas this variable is 61% important. And it's not like I have this numbers scheme, but I think that I have an ability to recognize those things and be able to prioritize and put together something that is actually sensible, that is inclusive, but not overly focused on the wrong details that I see being a problem that a lot of other people can't help themselves with. So I think that's probably it. Like, just, I'm a model builder. I really like building models and unrolling those models and seeing how they work, and then fairly objectively examining the results that occur from reproducing that model over and over again, and then making the appropriate changes from that. So I'm an empirical thinker, but from a larger model sort of theory perspective, as opposed to, I'm definitely not the guy that wants to be in there every single day with the the individual tools. Like I like to be able to examine things from afar, and then make those hierarchical models from that information.
Which it's awesome because you put information in such a way that they're easily digestible, and with a lot of humor, which I really enjoy. Because I like being a bit of sarcastic sometimes, especially that's why I love your posts. But in an era that I feel a lot of mental constipation and mental ingestibility with all this information, how have you created your own sieve in order when all this shit comes out that you clear all the bullshit? Because that's the problem now. Like a lot of people is like, I'm science based, and I was like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think I'd have to say that I think genetics plays a part in it. Quite honestly, I see the other people in my family, and I think that they're generally pretty damn smart people. I think that I come from a line of people that are pretty intelligent. But it's more than, it's like there's intelligence, and then there's just the ability to kind of see through stuff. And I can, I was mostly raised by my grandparents and then my aunt after they died. And so I think about it, like my grandparents were born in 1914 and 1915, and grew up during the Great Depression. And my grandfather had to start working as a longshoreman on the Boston docks when he was like 12, 13 years old, because his father had contracted polio, and he had to essentially kind of take care of his whole family. And he still went to school, and he became he worked in the post office for the city of Boston for his career, and he moved up pretty high in there. And my grandmother came from a big Irish family where her parents had been indentured servants. And so, I mean, they're just hardworking people that grew up during a very, very tough time in a very tough place. And they had all the street smarts in the world, and still really drove their own book learning. You know what I mean? My grandmother and grandfather were very, very well-read people. The major things that I heard over and over as a kid was, if you really want to be successful, all you really have to do is read more than other people. If you read more than other people, you'll probably be smarter than other people, and you'll probably be able to do whatever the hell you want to do in life. And that was it. Like and the other thing, like my grandfather was very unfiltered. Like the number of times that he said, "Don't be a goddamn idiot" to me is probably through the roof. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, he'd look at what other kids are doing. He's like, "Are you kidding me? You're going to just do what they did?" Like you're going to jump off a bridge if they do, but not put in that way. Just like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen somebody do. Why would you do this? Like, are you an idiot? Like, please tell me you're not an idiot. Like, just look at what's happening and make your own mind up, and stop doing what everybody else is doing just because they're doing it. So I think that I was brought up with that. And and then my aunt who raised me after they died, I mean, she was a very smart person. She worked as a lawyer originally, like a labor law lawyer. And she quit that field because she was just kind of sickened by the way that unions in the United States were just crushed. And she just thought it was hopeless at a certain point. Like, it's never going to work. Like,
that's exactly what my grandfather did. That's how he left, because he was a lawyer as well. And it's exactly what you're saying about, he was saying the same thing.
So she didn't continue to fight a hopeless fight. She switched out. She got into medicine. She worked she worked her way up through nursing. She ultimately got just the hospital system drove her out. She just thought it was insane. Then she went into her own business. She sold antiques through eBay and did very, very well in that. And, I just watched her basically not accept status quo, not accept that you just have to stick to this one thing forever. And she just literally hard worked her way through whatever it was that she needed to do in order to support me. I mean, she took care of me as a single parent, and really was somebody that I watched go through multiple careers during this time. And and just a brilliant person. And so I feel like I got a lot of knowledge and thought processes through those individuals who look like, I mean, like people that are familiar with like Irish immigrant thought process, like they don't trust the government. They don't trust banks. They don't really like it's a no bullshit culture. And it's like, you know, you take care of yourself because nobody else is going to do that for you.
For you, yeah.
And if you trust the powers that be, you're kind of an idiot. Like they're not looking out for you. They're going to consolidate and keep everything inside. So carve your own path and have some self-reliance and really be able to look out at what's in front of you and be very well read on everything that you possibly can, be well informed. And as a result of being that way, you're able to decode reality in some ways better than other people can, who are almost so programmed into accepting what's given to them and just going to go along with whatever it is that everybody else is doing and accepting that it's, and to me, I still see it. I'm like, God, I really think they were right. Maybe you can't escape. Like, that's just how I was brought up. So that's how I'm going to view things. But it's almost like I resisted it in some ways. Like, man, I'm being raised by a bunch of nuts or something like that. And now I'm like, no, I think the older I get, the more I think they're really right. And I'm very grateful for the mentality that they put into me.
You had tough times, and I've read them, and we had chat a lot previous time about it. And I feel you, because in some, even though, you know, we haven't actually met, we share a lot of same thoughts, a lot of same background in a way. And I believe, have you accepted the reality that all the things you've been telling me now have carved who you are today, and all the struggles have made you who you are today because the environment pushed you in that kind of broad spec, hard work, I take no bullshit, I'm going to find out what's going on. And I know that there was pain, and still is, but look how all that put you in that kind of position where you are at now.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for, you know, the demons of my ancestors, the demons of my own life, and the struggles that I've gone through, because, you know, I don't know how else you're going to build resiliency without having gone through your own fires. And really, like, I always wonder, like what drives a person. And it's funny, I did this big mentorship group during our lockdown over here. We're going to finish week 10 coming up, and I really enjoyed the process. And the, you know, it was like we really structured it out pretty well, where their first assignment was really to identify their own goals. And I was talking about, you know, I tried to lead by example, so I did my own version of it and explain my own goals and why I want certain things. And you know, I spent a lot of time talking about Moby Dick and Captain Ahab with it, where, you know, I think that number one for me, like my goals, you know, I struggle with everything related to, in terms of why people do things, why, like, I don't look out and see like a greater cause of the world or anything like that. Like, I don't look at the universe as having like a tremendous purpose or anything like that. Like, I invent my own purposes and I put value on my own things, even though I don't think anything really matters that much, which is a crazy thing to say. But if nothing matters, then I can make anything matter as much as I want to make it matter.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, the more that I have an emotional investment towards something and the more effort I put into something, the more it matters. And for me, I'm the kind of person where I make my own new white whale, and then I chase it like Ahab, and I try to drown it, you know, and I fight it to the point of like one of us is going to die in the end. And then it's like it happens, you know, it's almost like the Rethinking the Big Patterns book. It's kind of like I chased that whale for a couple of years, and I basically harpooned it a number of times and dragged the boat around, And it was an incredible fight. And now it's almost like in these end processes, it's just like I've got a graphics person designing the imagery, and I'm working with an editor who's going through it and kind of working on the writing style and the grammar and those things. And I feel like I'm almost like it's to the point now where I'm just in the drift. You know, I know that at some point in the near future, another white whale is something that I'm going to have to invent.
That was my question now is, I love Ithaca, the poem by Cavafy, which always says, you know, when you get to Ithaca, it's going to be poor. It's not going to be as you imagine, because I don't think it's Moby Dick. It's a whole chase. It's a whole journey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So sometimes you might catch it and then you say, you know what, I'll let it go and catch it again. Or I might get another Moby Dick or his son or whatever. But it's the journey that always makes it worthwhile. And it's what you put on mass too, is like, if you want to be a dick and you want to go straight to the program, this is not for you. You're weak. I've kept that line on your book, like, and I put it everywhere, because that's it. Like, you need to finish the book. You need to see my whole, how I think, how I program everything. What's the context of everything I'm giving you, because we all know you can go from a fucking brick wall if you do that training, especially mass. Like when I did mass, I thought I was crazy for a bit, and then mass 2 put everything in context. So what drives you for that Moby Dick? Because that what drives you for your part is what drives you, well, your athletes when you were an athlete, but the same thing you're doing at Hype and the same thing you were doing with your books, your coaching. What's that about?
Quite honestly, I think there's just something broken inside of me, and that I'm just can never really be happy with me or satisfied with me. I feel like there's something missing. I feel like, so it's this perpetual need to try to fill that in with something. And, you know, it's like at a certain point, and I'm like, okay with that. I've become more and more okay with myself as a person, which scares me in some ways, because it's almost like, as I feel more okay about myself, will that kind of take me away from this incessant drive and need to do work that makes me like feel more complete for a temporary period of time? I don't think that will. I think it's just so programmed into me now that the process orientation of working on a project is something that's like, it's just part of me. But I think that if you're so well adjusted in life that, you know, everything is just amazing all the time, then I feel bad for you in some ways.
Thank you.
You know, I'm very grateful for having not grown up with a nuclear family and having not, you know, received all the things that you need to receive to be super well adjusted. And I think that makes me different. And with that, it's like I feel this incessant need to overcome or to fight against something, whatever it is. But I just know that it's led to a lot of things that have helped me stand out as a person.
That's so important, because that's I think one of my mottos for what I like when people ask me, what do you do? And they're like, are you a nutritionist? Are you a chiropractor? I said, I'm just want to optimize human potential in any way. Because if somebody I've got another year to finish to become a licensed chiropractor. I just finished my MSc. I just found my results now, so that's out of the way. In sports and exercise science, and I don't like when people give you this is who you are, and I always say what drives you. And I say it's dear consistency. Every morning I get up, I've got a big thing that says dear consistency, and I always try to fill it up with something. And I've got a pattern which I follow. And if you don't enjoy the smell of shit sometimes, you need to. Because if you want to be happy and have positive thoughts and unicorns and all this, either you're taking drugs or there's something wrong with you. You need, as you said, to acknowledge that there's another side in order to see the bright side. There's no other way. Same thing with training. People say, and I don't know because I've seen you train and you're mental as well. You're more mental than anybody. Did you enjoy training? I say, I don't. I enjoy it when I finish because I'm like, I'm out. I've just finished, gasping for air or whole body's aching, and people say, "Oh, that's training shouldn't be like that." I was like, if you want results or if you want something better, that's the only way to do it, and it's not going to happen if you're just using nothing and you're just seeing somebody on YouTube jumping around and you want some results, and that's why it's not going to work. I don't know what's your case or what you think, because I know
You know,
you're mental.
yeah, I think that it's really funny. Like I was, I think that I've been able to delay my next project, White Whale, because over the summer I was trying to do Derek Hansen's virtual speed program, and it basically I didn't realize that at 40 years old I was basically signing up to try out for the track team, and I haven't done workouts like that in a long time. Like, I've gotten pretty specific over onto the resistance training side of things, and I've run and jumped and stuff like that, but as like a ancillary component of training and not as a primary thing. And I think it was perfect for this past summer of going out to the track and working on the turf field. And it was, the time going out with the group I was training with, we were midday in July, and there was a good 2 week stretch where it was over 95 degrees Fahrenheit every single day. It was crazy out there. But I started the program off with an injured groin, and as a result of that, I had to kind of modify some stuff, and I had to do all the drills like very vertical in nature, like more A runs and B runs as compared to just regular running. But I did the same yardage. Anyways, I don't know if that was the reason or what, but my shins were just destroyed, and like you just from week 2, like just incredible levels of shin pain and foot pain and things like that. And I just kept kind of going through it. Like, I'm not going to stop no matter what. Like, I will not stop. Like, this program, I'm going to finish this program. I'm going to do every single day. I'm going to complete every single yard that is prescribed. Like, it doesn't matter. And I actually, I think the first time in my life, had to cut a program short. I got through week 10, and I just literally I could not do another day. And it's driving me crazy, but I'm pretty sure that I drove bilateral stress fractures into both tibia. And because they still hurt, and I haven't been out there to run in 3 weeks plus now. And but it was like, it was so crazy in a lot of ways. I had so many other life stresses happening, and yeah, and it was like, I'm going to do this no matter what. And it was like it was waking me up in the middle of the night multiple times with just like my shins throbbing. And I think that in some ways, like, just that, and it's funny, I would never have anybody else do that. I would never have a client do that. I would never have an athlete do that. We would make adjustments, we would make changes, and I had multiple people that I care about a lot in my life being like, why are you doing this? Like, this is so stupid. Just and I just was like, you don't understand. Like, I'm doing this. I don't even know why I'm doing this, but I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I made my mind up to do this. And probably one of the most idiotic things I've ever done. And it was just torturous. Like, it was 5 days a week, every single day. By Monday, after Saturday and Sunday taking off, Monday would be like slightly less torturous. But then as the week would build up, it would be like by Friday, barely being able to stand. And then like run, come back, collapse on the ground, shins like literally just throb, stand up like kind of shaking, and then run again. It was as pointless and stupid as anything could get, but it was mentally kind of where I was. It
You
sort
needed
of
it.
represents anything about my mind at that point in time.
Plus, it gave you a
So,
lot. I think all that knowledge you got from that program, I think you can utilize it in many ways in how you train people.
that's what I kept trying to tell people. Even my therapist, who I didn't tell about this for a while, and when I finally told her about it, she was like, what's going on with this? Why were you doing this to yourself? And I was like, well, part of it is just like, I for me, I like to test boundaries and limits, and I didn't think that I would physically break. I thought it was like just forcing my mind to accept something new that it had never experienced before. And, and that to me is a big part of life. And also, like, I'm pretty sure I can write a return to play following a groin injury manual now, because I was able to train very hard and essentially do a running program without running while allowing a groin injury to heal simultaneously. And that's really valuable information for high level athletes and teams who have athletes that suffer significant groin injuries that need to get them back to full speed running relatively quickly. And
was it painful in counter or notation when
everything?
Everything.
I mean, trying to get out of bed, like, you know, just rolling over to get out of bed would be significant groin pain. Like I injured it in March in the beginning of our lockdown over here, you know, doing a sprint on a self-propelled treadmill. Just one one weird step, pop, I felt something in the groin go. And, you know, it had been kind of healing because I just had been able to leave it alone and train in other ways. But then all of a sudden it was like, hey, our group is going to do this running program Derek put together. And I was like, oh, okay, we'll see what happens. And then like week one, run one, it was just like, God, like right there. I was like, oh no, like I haven't even started this program and I'm like injured in this program. And I tried to run through it. It just kept getting worse. And then I had to modify, and the modifications were great. It's just that it's almost like I just think of like in India where they had cobras and then they brought in the mongoose. And so I created a mongoose problem with the shins from the cobra problem of the groin. And, you know, I think it's just a volume sort of a thing in terms of, you know, just excessive early volume of high amplitude foot contact that my tibia just were not even remotely prepared for. So, but the groin healed, I think that if I go out and run, even the groin still, you know, I'm a little iffy about it. It's a pretty significant thing. I think I probably tore an adductor in March and just never really let it heal and rest, but still managed to run. You know, it's like by the end of the program, like it was funny. We took a week off. Like everybody was just trashed going through week 9. Took a week off. And on the Monday of starting week 10, I felt fresh for one day and hit some speeds that I was like, man, I don't know what I hit on a clock, but I was flying.
I saw some of your videos.
And then by the end of the session, yeah, by the end of the session, though, my shins were ruined. And coming back out to train the next day, you know, I trained Monday through Friday again. By Friday, I couldn't take a step, you know, like I would try to run and it was like there was nothing there to push off of. So
without going
I was
down
like, you know,
to the thing you, sorry for interrupting, the CNS fatigue, as a lot of people say, would that be?
It's still like, I mean, like I said, it's been 3 weeks since I've run and my shin still hurt like crazy. So I don't know if it's, I mean, it's just so local. Like you can see the swelling going from the shins down into the feet and stuff like that. Like at a certain point, it's like, there's something, they were bruised without impact. You know, it was just like,
yeah,
it was like a local tissue situation that was completely overwhelmed. Other people were having some shin and foot things, but I think, you know, I started the program at 225 pounds and I dropped 15 pounds during the program. And it helped. I think it's the only thing that kind of managed it, but I think I had a lot more body weight and a lot more force per foot strike than other people. And I think that you know, you just do that for, I'm talking the number of reps of foot contacts was probably millions of percentage points greater from a volume standpoint than anything I've done. I'm just trying to think, like, when's the last time I did anything that would have been remotely like this? And we're probably looking at 20 years since I've done anything like this with football practice or something like that. So it was, I mean, if for taking someone that hasn't been running, I remember saying this to Derek, like, yeah, my feet and shins are destroyed, like in a way that I can't even comprehend. And he's like, that never really happens to my NFL guys that go through this. And I was like, oh, NFL guys. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, I'm 40 and I haven't run in 20 years. These are the most genetically gifted, best athletes in the United States that are 20 years old. Like, okay, that tells me everything I need
they
to
have
know.
adapted to that system of training.
Yeah.
And that's a
Yeah,
good segue
sprint.
for the adaptations you always talk about. What should be, like, if you had an intern now, a coach working with you, and you had to give him a toolbox, what would be the main tools that you would supply him with?
Oof, that's a great question. I think it's just a way of thinking more than anything. Trying to, like, we do have an intern now, and it's funny because it's like personal training on a day in and day out basis. Because there's not that many athletes in New York City, and in particular right now. There's like any high level athletes competing in the major sports, they're not coming into the city right now. Our professional sports, our professional football teams play in New Jersey. The basketball was in the bubble. The hockey was in the bubble. If I'm going to get any athletes, it would probably be basketball players or hockey players because they actually play at Madison Square Garden in the city. But they're in their own system. So there's not that many athletes to kind of train in New York City. And if you're going to make any money in the city, you're going to train CEOs and finance people, and that's the group. So that's who I train. And I get these interns that come to me because I think they realize that I have a high level of biomechanics knowledge and all this stuff. And then they see the sessions that I coach, and I think they're just like, what? Like, this is it? And I'm like, yeah, this is it, man. Like, this person does not need this advanced biomechanics stuff. Like, if I'm creating a hierarchy of what this person needs, they need to strength train with basics in the sagittal plane, and they need to do cyclical aerobic activity. That is the prescription for the general population. No, we're not doing advanced power training and post-activation potentiation. Yes, they're going to be doing like bodybuilding and cyclical aerobics. That's it. That's the model for this population. It's a boring population, but they will pay your bills. As long as you don't hurt them and as long as you continue to give them results, and the results that they're looking for are both in the aesthetics department and the health department. And they're basically the same department, particularly as people age. If I can keep their body composition in a really good place in terms of, maximizing muscle mass acquisition and giving them advice about nutrition and giving them a solid enough VO2 so that it's, this combination of muscle mass and an aerobic system, health and aesthetics, I'm doing everything I can there. So it's like, and if I'm going to keep them as clients, it's because they enjoy their hour with me. So no, I'm not coaching them that much. I'm speaking to them in a friendly manner, which for each client is different. Like, I'm trying to make it a good time for them. And with some of them, I ignore them, and so that they can interact with other people that are at the gym because that's what they enjoy. With others of them, I have to give them very direct one-on-one attention the whole time. With others, it's almost like I insult them because it's like I found out that personal training and being a dominatrix are almost the same job. Like, they kind of need to be tortured and that's what they actually like, and that's what they consistently pay for. So for those people, I'm like, look, like, I know what you came here for, and I know that you're not getting what you thought you were getting. But if you're going to work in fitness, even if you're working with athletes, I guarantee you're still going to work with general population because they're going to pay your bills. Yeah. And then you can use your passion play time to train athletes. There's a couple of select facilities that are in the right location with the right connections. And yeah, their revenue is athletes coming in, high-level professional athletes. But even with them, I can guarantee you it's going to be more similar to training Gen Pop than you think. Because, look, are you really going to be able to do that much with them? If they've got $100 million contracts? Not really. Are they going to be good at fitness? Usually not. Do they value it that much? Not as much as you think they should. It's going to be much more of this than what you think. Okay? Now, that being said, I do have all of these other tools. It's like, I've got this arsenal of guns that have just been sitting on the wall behind me that almost never get used. But if I see the right opportunity, I can blow the dust off of it at any second. And all of a sudden we can do this really cool sort of stuff that targets and trains highly specific tissues and highly specific positions. And I know that's what you came here for. And we can do that in our time, and you can learn to master it. But I'm telling you right now, like that's probably going to be stuff that you use fairly infrequently. So it's a fascinating thing. Like, but to me, it requires a high level of knowledge to get to the point where you realize, like, hey, those guns back there, you hardly ever blow the dust off. Like, you're going to use the same old trusty shotgun
over and over again.
Yeah. And
That's
you
so
got to
true,
be
man.
smart enough to realize, you got to be smart enough to realize this is still the right tool. Don't switch it up and go with that one just because you think it's sexier. Like, this is the right one for right now.
We live in an era, though, that's what's sexier, because I've got clients that are saying, I'm going to change the program. We've been doing it for 2 weeks, for example. And you're like, isn't it work? Like, it's working now. You're getting results. Why should we change it? It's like, well, I read this article that if we use this gadget or that gadget or this program and this and that, and it's becoming like a fashion kind of thing. Like, what? And I'm not, like, as you said before, we need to listen because it's all about human behavior, basically, and psychology. And you're trying to explain that, there's, like, besides the genes, let's see what we can do with this program. Let's finalize it. Let's optimize it. And then, yes, we can move on to something different. And you did that with, like, always with your program because you use different systems in its training. What's your case? How do you go with that? Because I know you don't like bullshit. And
yeah, I'm thinking of one specific client I've got, and he's always sending me articles, and he's always sending me these long, elaborate emails with 25 questions, and he's always getting hurt, and he's always wanting the program to change. And it's like, and I keep having to have the same conversation with this guy. It seems like every 6 to 8 weeks, because he always wants to do really extreme things and bring the program to really high level advanced places. And the only times that we make really good progress is he'll hurt himself doing something stupid. And it's happening slightly less frequently now that we have better conversations and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, he'll hurt himself and he'll be out for a few weeks. And then I'll get a message from him saying, like, he's like ready to come back or something. And I'm like, okay, man, but like, can we please just follow what I'm saying this time? And so we start off with something that's always really boring and basic and that seems like too easy for him. And it's like, we make consistent, steady progress on a consistent, steady program. And then he starts feeling good and he starts getting results. And then I see it happen. And I have to be like, hey, listen, I need you to not be your own worst enemy right now. Like, because I'm telling you this right now, if we actually continue to follow this program, it's going to become advanced. It'll happen. It's just that from what I feel about your system does not tolerate big leaps in activity volume very well. I think you could get up to the point where you can tolerate very high levels of activity volume. But I think for whatever reason, for you, if it's not graded in a very meticulous, careful way, it just is not, it's not a good idea. Like, something bad tends to happen. And then he'll always, and it's like this, it'll always be something new that he does that is like this thing, this monkey wrench that gets thrown in there, where he'll be like, I can't come in next week, my back. And I'm like, what did you do? And he's like, well, I walked for 6 hours on Saturday. And then I tried to lift on Sunday.
Wow.
And it's like, so you increased, like, and it's funny, like, I can remember even when, talking about Derek Hansen again, he was in New York, and he is a client that he was training at Drive 495, and he was going to do a seminar. So he was here for like maybe like a month or something like that. And he was having some right heel pain and some right hamstring pain and stuff like that. And he's like, I don't understand what's going on with it and this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, Derek, like, do you tend to walk more when you're in New York as compared to when you're home in Vancouver? And he's like, yeah, substantially more. I'm like, it's probably just that. Like, it's just this added volume of walking on concrete, like that's these thousands of percentage points more of this activity from a volume standpoint, just getting lumped on top of you kind of doing the same sort of workout program. But I've seen it a million times when I have people come and visit in New York, and because you have to walk so much in New York.
Yeah.
People, yeah, it's like you end up walking, like you blink, and by the end of the day, you measure your steps and you're at 15,000 steps. And it's like, when your body isn't ready for that, people get banged up from that incredibly. So I'm like, and this guy is smart. He's like a data analyst, and he works in tech companies and this whole thing. I'm like, listen, man, I need you to picture your whole movement life on a big spreadsheet in front of you. And you got to appreciate that every single thing, it goes in a column and it adds up and it kind of works together in some sort of a web-like manner. And if we dramatically increase anything, because he'll always be like, do you think it would be a good idea for me to start this new boxing class? And I'm like, no, like, because now you're going to go even once a week, and it's going to add like all these hand contacts and impact stuff. And it's going to be an hour of this. Like, if you add that, you need to decrease something else. You can't just add new things on top of what we're already doing. And so it's always something like that. And it's like, I think he's gotten to the point, because I'm not that nice to him either. Like, I've learned over time, like, if I'm nice to this guy, nothing good happens. And it makes other trainers that are around me uncomfortable during the hour that I'm with him. But I talk to this guy in a manner, and it's funny because I never would have started with somebody that way, but I've learned over time that that's actually what keeps this guy consistently coming back, is something about that form of communication and relationship style. But the whole point I'm getting at is that when you are talking about this consistency and keeping people making progress and staying healthy, and there's going to be weird things that people are going to throw at you that you don't really expect to be a problem when you start off in this profession. Like, and I've just learned over time that it's the same thing as tracking diets. It's this, like, when people can't, like, I don't understand why I'm not losing weight. I don't get it. And it's like, well, have you tracked your food? No, but I'm going to describe the meal that I had to you. I'm not going to tell you anything about the portions, but I'm going to tell you about the things that I ate, except that I'm going to exclude, like, the 3 bottles of wine and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, listen, like, I'm telling you right now, if you were following a mathematically based diet that accounted for everything that you are eating, and it was hypocaloric, I'm telling you right now, 100%, you would be going in the right direction. And no, it's not that. I must have eaten too late before bed. No, I'm telling you right now, that doesn't make a goddamn bit of difference. Okay,
if the math biology, they just don't,
it just doesn't work that way. So it's like, same thing with the exercise stuff. I don't understand why I keep hurting myself. Well, what did you do this week? And then they kind of, well, Monday, and then all of a sudden something jumps out at you where they're like, yeah, I went for a 17-hour bike ride on that. And I'm like, why didn't you mention this? Like, this is clearly, like, when's the last time you went for a bike ride? 13 years ago. It's like, oh, okay. So
makes sense.
Yeah. You haven't done this thing for over a decade, and then you added like 6 hours of it randomly out of the blue, and now you're wondering why something went wrong 2 days after that. Like, is it just me, but this happens all the time.
And that goes down to the coach to ask the right questions, because sometimes we get to, it can be your, we're trying to find muscle or origins or insertions, and you're like, what did you do yesterday?
Yeah.
let's cut it down to like, come on, what did you do? What
And
was it?
I got another dude. I'm thinking of all these very specific people now. This other guy kind of coming over to me from somebody else, and he's a back problem guy over and over. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to put you through a workout. I just want to see what happens. I'm just super curious. I'm going to do nothing that's going to really stress your back. And I want to see how your back feels after this. So it's like, the Kaiser single leg press. Literally no, like if you hurt your back on this thing, then I don't even know I don't understand how that's going to happen. But we're going to do this, and we're going to do a 15-pound single leg deadlift done really well. It's a 15-pound dumbbell hurts your back. I don't know what to say. And I'm just going to hit you with enough of it for a fitness stimulus. I want to see what happens. And then it's kind of like, oh yeah, my back is like, oh my God. And I'm like, well, what else is going on other than your back? Well, I'm sore everywhere. Like my hamstrings are sore, my glutes are sore, my obliques are sore, my this is sore, my that is sore. I'm like, well, first of all, if the amount of volume that we did made you sore, because we did 2 sets and we probably stayed 10 reps short of failure on all exercises. If it made you that sore, you haven't been training. You haven't been doing anything. And like maybe we'd have a system-wide inflammation response to something that probably shouldn't cause a system-wide inflammation response. Because I don't think it's localized to your back. You're telling me everywhere. Is sore. Everywhere. Like your eyebrows are sore. This is sore. I think maybe we probably have a lack of consistency in exercise, because this is somebody that has had a biomechanics lens focused on them tremendously for a significant amount of time in terms of moving well and being able to get into positions and get the right tissues and that whole thing. Like it's all there. Like those boxes are checked off. Like the execution of drills looks great, but it's like, well, so it's almost like you've been working with a biomechanics focused person for a long enough period of time. I think the biomechanics is checked off. I think that the targeting of tissues is checked off, all that sort of stuff. What's not being checked off here? Overall fitness, probably not checked off to the degree that it needs to be. And the other thing, again, is the consistency. I've learned so much through just examining the work of Mike Israetel. And
yeah, Mike is just legend. Yeah.
It's like, this is a dude that really compares apples to apples in his training. Like every rep of every exercise that he does looks exactly the same, from rep 1 to the last rep of the last set. And so he knows whether or not he's truly making progress in something. And like I'm watching this guy work out, and he'll have done like 17 reps on a leg. And I'm like, I told him like, we're doing 12 reps. And I just like to watch. I don't say, and I'm like, how many more reps do you have on this set? And I don't know. Like, I'm like, well, how do you not know? Like, we're doing this for 12. Okay. And because he's going to train on his own. I'm not going to be there, so I need to know. I'm like, if the set says 12, you need to do 12. You need to count. And because I'm just thinking to myself, like, this is someone who clearly has not started in the right level, baseline fitness, trained to meet that level, and then consistently progressed outward from there. Because again, like 2 sets of very sub-maximal single leg press, 2 sets of very sub-maximal single leg deadlift, combined with like a rotational drill with no load. This is like the whole session. If that makes you so sore system-wide, I just wanted to see what would happen, and I had a feeling that would happen, but it was like your operational level of baseline fitness is not supportive biologically to be able to handle literally any stress. You have no buffer zone, you have no resiliency, you have nothing.
Maybe more systemic or something else going on.
It has to be something. Like that's kind of where I'm like, so, and like, but if something systemic is like, I'm like, I guess I could order blood tests and be like, okay, well, you have like this enormous immune response problem that your icosanoids are through the roof, and this is clearly a problem. Like, you need to follow up with another. It was almost more of like you need something else other than just repeatedly trying to take the biomechanics hammer to this problem, because that's been fixed. I'm just curious why this level of response took place in it. And my primary tools, like, I can evaluate the biomechanics. I'm just looking at, like, you need to start with something so low level that you can handle and recover from, but then you better not stay there. But you also better not try to progress it way too fast. Because I'm looking at this guy, and he's somebody that, like, psychologically wants to progress it 1,000,000 miles in one day. It's like, there's so many examples of people that, like, have been hurt, been this, been that, and then they all of a sudden feel better. And then they want to take the program from 0 to 1,000,000 in one day. Yeah. And it's like, do not do that, man. Follow the small, tiny, quantitative progressions. And look, we'll go to the promised land.
And you're not going to see results as well. Yeah. Yep. What I usually say is, back in New York, you see, like, a big building. Before it starts to build up, there's quiet. Trucks in, trucks out, noise, but it's covered. You don't see anything. 6 months later, you see 20 stories. And that's what I tell people. Be patient. Let's build a foundation. Trust the process. In 6 months, we're going to have 20 stories in one day.
Yep.
Like,
increasing by 2.5% every week leads to enormous changes over the course of 50 weeks. But if you try to go 12% in a week, it's probably way more than you can handle. And by trying to do that, now you go backwards. Exactly. And the problem is, like, if you make small, tiny increases over time, it takes some time to build up to something pretty impressive. But if you go in the other direction of decreasing, it's like falling off the sheer face of a rock wall. You go straight down really, really fast, really, really far. And then I don't know how far and how fast you're going to fall, but it's going to be like an exponential curve rather than like kind of a small linear build-up line.
Because they haven't trusted the process, and that's why they feel they failed. That's why I always say, stick with the process, be there, and see what you can actually make out of that program. And don't be like, I need to change my program, I need to do this, I need to go fast. It's not going to happen. You cannot cheat biology, as we said before.
Yep.
3, I know you're busy.
Yeah.
What would be the best and worst time in your career?
Oof. It might be the same time in some ways. I think the lowest point I've reached was getting fired from Springfield College. And, that was the hardest pill to swallow I've had to deal with. Like, I've had a history in my life of substance abuse. And when you're an active drug addict and drunk and things aren't going well for you, it's actually kind of easy when that's the case. Like, it makes sense. Like, oh, okay, didn't show up to work and I got fired, but that makes sense because I was, out drinking until 4 a.m. and I slept until 4 p.m. But when, for me getting fired from Springfield College, I had been sober for, a decade or maybe, around that point. Like, I had been consistent, I got sober and I had made a march of just being on point with things. And like within 6 or 7 years of being sober, I had a Ph.D. And, I had been on such a steady rise of progress and work and achievement. And everywhere I went, I was exceeding expectations and dominating. And I felt like when I got to Springfield, to me, I was doing everything I wanted to do in the way that I wanted to do it. And, the problem is that I did not fit into this department well. I did not see the way that other people were perceiving me. I didn't realize the problems that I was creating. But and being told, like, we don't want you here, you're not a good fit for this, that was crushing, because there was nowhere to point and say, like, oh, it's because I was
Well,
drinking. It's
your
because
questions
this,
were intellectual threat rather than a course of getting things better and a bit ahead. I believe that's why that happened.
I made a number of mistakes on a personal and professional level at that place. And, everything is my fault. It really was. Like it, like, the reason I got fired was 100% me. It had not, like, so knowing that at my full capacity, with a clear mind, with all of my work and all of my effort, that was enough to be told, like, get out of here. That hurt so much. It was unbelievable. And really, like, it's tough being fired in academia because you don't just go away immediately. It was like I had to work the next year at the school knowing that I was not going to be kept at the school. And during that time, I had a drug relapse that year as well, that started with a prescription to Percocet that I began abusing immediately. And that led to, just other things. Like, it led to me on a daily basis starting to smoke weed when I ran out of the Percocet, because I was looking for anything that would keep me in that place, and I just didn't realize that I could go to that extent and that quickly, and abuse basically anything. So I started behaving more and more erratically. My life was really going in a bad direction. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to me to think back on it, and to think about the way that I was acting, and my inability to control my life at that point in time, and all of those things. And I feel like I got really lucky in being given an opportunity in New York, and moving out of the situation I was in Massachusetts, and coming down and kind of starting over again, and at the same time getting back to a level of sobriety from a chemical standpoint,
What
and
inspired you to
kind
do
of
that?
get.
Because it wasn't
What's
work.
that?
What inspired you to change? Because to relapse, it's even harder to come back. What was the power that created that shift, that change?
It was, for me, it was actually like I had sort of disappeared for a weekend, and actually, when I really got to the worst of my substance abuse as a younger person, it was with abusing cocaine. And that was like that was the hard, like, that drug took me to some really bad places. And in the relapse, I eventually got to the point where I used ecstasy for a night, and was again snorting something. And that physical act of something going up my nose, and waking up the next day and just being like, what is going on with you? Like, you've gone off of a ledge. You are beyond the deep end. Like, you know, your life is completely out of control. It was that night, and a long drive home by myself, and talking to a friend that was kind of like, man, you've lost your mind. Like, you don't even sound like yourself. Your voice doesn't even sound like you. It was really that felt like another kind of a bottom for me, because I had done so much good work in the time after getting sober the first time up to this point, and then literally just taking a Percocet one time.
That was it.
And that was all it took for me to really to just go completely AWOL on everything I had built up habit wise, and all the things that I'd become proud of myself over. And it was just gone. I was just completely lost right away. And the active addict just came screaming out of the gates and dragged me right back down into this daily practice of substance abuse. And it was progressing. It was like, as soon as I got a harder substance in my body, and inhaling it through my nose like this, it was like, oh my God, like, I can't believe how quick I got right back here. After all of this time of really building a life I can be proud of, to boom, that sheer fall off the rock face. Like, how the hell is this possible? How is this my life at this point in time? So it was, and from that point, starting over again, trying to pick myself up, it got me back into an amazing style of habit formation and life direction and marching again towards something that I really reformed my life in New York. I revived my career. I set it on a completely different motion, and it brought me all the way up to where I am now. You know, it was like I needed to go through that for my unconscious brain to be able
to and accept it.
Yeah. I mean, the mass books came on the tail end of that, like getting myself back to a good place. Mass one, sort of like the, you know, it spun out of that. Mm-hmm. And everything else since then. So
big influences in your life, either from coaching perspective or.
Yeah, you know, I think my grandfather was a huge influence on me. It's just that, you know, he died early on in my life. He died when I was 10 years old, and you know, from there I didn't have any kind of a male figure other than the coaches that I worked with. And my high school baseball coach, Fred Thatcher, was a huge influence on me. You know, following that, like once I got into mixed martial arts, my coach there, John Burke, was an enormous influence on me. I don't think I would even be here at this point without that guy. And you know, I think as a professional, I think Bill Hartman has probably been a bigger influence on me than he could ever believe. And we have very different personalities and styles, but you know, the way that Bill approaches things and the tenacity of his brain is something that's always going on in my mind, of like, as my imagination of how hard he works, you know, what I picture him doing on a daily basis. I just say to myself, like, I want to honor that by working in my own way as hard as I possibly can, and trying to keep up with that and driving myself forward. So I think those are some major influences. And quite honestly, I don't think Mike Israetel has any idea how much of an influence he is on me at this point in time. Indirectly, just watching him operate and seeing how much he's built on his own, and the way that he trains, and the way that he thinks, and the way that he talks, and all that sort of stuff. I really admire.
I've seen him so many times, and we've spoken. Like, he's so humble. He's a machine. He's funny. He's highly intelligent, and his work ethic is just out of this world.
Yeah.
From what you've been saying, and that's what I want to say to coaches out there, is it's not about reps, sets, and volume. Look at 4 people with Mike, how they changed your life without, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They took it from A to B in a spiritual or a mental state, and they pushed you forward. And it wasn't the reps or the training, it was other things that were happening in the background. 3 books that you can say that influenced you, and you would recommend it to anybody that listens to us.
3 books. That's a tough one. That's a hard one.
Because what we have to do now is the energy of your grandpa and your grandma, we need to push it through. Read. Yeah.
Boy, that's such a hard question. You know, I think Principles by Ray Dalio.
Oh, favorite book. Yeah, so I have it over here.
Yeah.
Every time I read it, there's more gems coming out.
You know, when I read that book is what created the Rethinking the Big Patterns overall way that I wanted to make it as a model. So it'd be really hard not to include that one. I think Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman is another one. And by that one, I would just say that, like, I've just realized that my instinctive reactions are almost always wrong, and that if I don't educate myself through very high level information on a topic and really immerse myself in that topic, there's literally no hope that I could possibly be right about that topic with whatever comes into my mind. And that the being able to educate yourself is an uncomfortable practice that requires you to really not enjoy the process. Like, you have to move outside your comfort zone and work super hard with stuff that challenges your way of thinking. Like you read something and you're like, I don't know what that means. And then you go back through the paragraph and you're like, what does this possibly mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? You break it down, you think about it, you write it out, and you're like, oh my God, that's what that means, you know? And so like, if you don't do that, then you're uneducated and you're useless, not just useless, a problem on a topic. So I think those are two that are just enormous on that front. And, you know, I feel like almost a miss not including a training book in there. And I'm just trying to think of like, what's the most important training book I think I've ever read. And it's a tough one. I got so much out of Mike Boyle's Advances in Functional Training the first time I read it. I got so much out of Cal Dietz's Triphasic Training.
Yeah. How about Mel Sith, Super Training?
Super Training. It's almost like I want a separate list of some of those, you know, and also I think Zatsiorsky's Science and Practice of Strength Training is just still like just such an enormous, like concepts from there are just enormous. You know, those almost all kind of, and I'll tell you, Christian Thibodeau's Little Black Book of Training Secrets,
yeah,
I think is a tremendously underrated book from a long time ago that I still draw on quite a bit. You know, I think those are all big ones. I'm trying to think of like even textbooks that have been incredibly powerful, like McCardle Catch and Catch, Exercise Physiology.
Yeah, that took me from my MSc actually.
It has literally everything in there. Literally everything. You think you're advanced and like, oh, this undergraduate textbook won't. Man, that book has everything in it. So I know I've gone way over that number of 3, but it's hard to corral. Somebody asked me, what are your 3 favorite movies this week? And I was like, what? Like, it depends on what kind of mood you're in.
Yeah. What's next, Pat? What's happening? What's
so plans? You know, a lot of stuff is kind of based around 2 projects, the Rethinking the Big Patterns group of projects, which includes the book being finished. We're projecting November, early November as a finish point, or mid-November, somewhere in that range. The book is 19 chapters. The editor is finishing chapter 13 this week, and it's 1 week per chapter, basically. So 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 6 weeks. 6 more weeks is about when the editor will be done. And today is September 27th, so whenever that would be, somewhere in November.
Mid-November, yeah.
Mid-November. You know, I'm sure there'll be some last final touches. It's going to sell through Renaissance periodization. And with that, I'm also making an online platform for a certification model through Rethinking the Big Patterns, where the people that want to get that certificate, there's a group of online lectures that walks you through the major theories of it, and there's a quiz, and you take the quiz, you have to pass the quiz, and once you pass the quiz, then you can go to the in-person seminars following that. Okay. And there's going to be, I think I'm building it out as 3 in-person seminars. The motor patterns in it, of the Rethinking the Big Patterns, there's core and breathing, there is athletic patterns, and there is resistance training patterns. And people will take those. They can get certified in each one by going to the course. And then once they've taken all 3, then there's going to be a final exam that will take
all the modules together.
All the modules and the book. Like, you're going to have to demonstrate you read the book and you really read the book. The final exam will be grueling and something that really tests whether or not you know the information. And if you pass that final exam, then you'll be fully certified in the system. So I want the certification, and I want that to be something that really represents something profound. And like, if you are looking to hire someone, this will tell you that this person really put some work into learning something and can coach this stuff. I want the in-person seminars to be hands-on, doing the stuff, demonstrating to me that you know how to do it and you know how to coach it. So that's one phase of a lot of my work right now. And the other phase is strength score, which is, a quantitative measuring system for resistance training that I've been developing with Ethan Grossman for the last almost 5 years now.
Wow.
We have it. We started our first version of it with Kaiser equipment, where we can pull the information out of a Kaiser machine, and we can basically measure your output for your set, for your for the sets of something that you do for your whole workout. We can track, and it's so different. Like, people think like, oh, it's just it's another quantitative system, blah 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 blah. It's like, you can really tease out the actual volume of what you're really doing in the weight room, because it measures load and the distance that the load traveled collectively across every single rep, so you can see what you did. And it's been so interesting watching it happen. So it works. Like, our system works. It's in its first beta version at Hype Gym, where I work out of. We've got a big scoreboard on the wall, and you're going through your workout. It demonstrates what it collects the information on every rep. It adds your rep up, and then you finish your set, and it has your set, and then it adds each set to the collective work total.
Wow. Gyms can use that platform as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're using it already. It's just that we're going to build it out in a much more sophisticated manner. We just wanted to see that the damn thing worked in the first place. We're trying to finalize a partnership with Kaiser to be able to use it through their stuff. And, I think that going forward, we've got some super interesting ways in which we would use this. But it's like, every major team has a GPS for their athletes, where they track how much they run and how fast they run. And this will be the same thing, but for the weight room. And you can see like your taller athletes and your shorter athletes. It's like, hey, all those tall guys that didn't look like they were good in the weight room, they really were. They really were. Like, and there's a reason that those guys start and the other guys don't start. And if you look at their work output, like, we can see the difference now. I mean, it's unreal how much distance matters. So it's a cool system. Like, it really is. You can track, you can make progress much more, much more accurately. You can, like, if you go ahead and cheat your reps, it's just going to show up there in a lower score. You're not really stronger. You're not really doing more reps with this exercise. You just did a couple of half reps that didn't count for much. Like, you're actually worse than last time. You just thought you were better. But also, like, if
progress, you can see your true progress, and you can see exactly where you failed or not, which is really important.
And then you can go inside every exercise, and you can. It's a better tool to evaluate what's happening than anything else that's ever been put into a weight room.
When is that coming out?
Well, like I said, it's already kind of done. We're kind of working with Kaiser now to actually figure out exactly how we're gonna financially operate, and the logistics of having machines build our computers and machines put it on their equipment. Like, there's a number of steps kind of going along the way with that. And then a couple of different offshoots that I think are super interesting for the future as well. But it's something that actually already exists, oddly enough. It's just we're not in a place to really, like, sell it at a high level. And it's all largely, like, just based on partnership finalizations and logistical problem solvings. But it's going to be hopefully something that I think that when people understand what this thing does and see it and use it, it should revolutionize the way that people resistance train and monitor their resistance training and progress their resistance training and appropriately from a quantitative standpoint. And I think that, the big thing is probably the behavioral modification, because when you see your score improve because you use better range of motion with lighter weight, all of a sudden, all of the ego of heavier and cheating reps, it gets called out for what it is. Because, I mean, think about all the times you've been in the gym and you've seen somebody, and it's like, there's no way this guy can squat that. Like, there's no shot. And then you see exactly what you expected with, like, 5 quarter squats, if you can even call them quarter squat reps. And you're like, man, come on. Like, everybody knew that was going to happen. Well, you think that was good? You're proud of that? That was bullshit. And now the score they would do their set, their score would be horrendous, and everybody would be able to look at it and be like, yeah, bro, like that's what we all knew was happening the whole time. Like, congratulations for this terrible set that you just did, you know, versus that guy over there that's got the right weight on, that's doing it the right way. You know, it's pretty wild how quickly people change their behaviors to get a better score, because it's the first time that you actually get a positive reinforcement.
Measure it.
It's visual. It's right there. It's like people, you know, like I said, Mike Israetel has been a huge influence on me with apples to apples. And how do you know that how do you know you've got an apple? Because a lot of reps are lemons. And it's like, and the other thing, like I've kind of talked about it before, but the brains to balls ratio, where it's like, you know, some people are too skewed towards one side of that equation. And I think that this thing brings it together better than almost anything in terms of like, listen, like, you know, you've got the balls, okay, but you don't have the brains, because if we measured your previous workout, we measured this one, you've tried to progress way too fast, and it's right there. Like, your score increased by 27%, and that's great. But if you keep increasing your score by 27% each workout, you're going to be in a body bag in a month. Like, we can actually, like you're done. Your workout is over. You just increased your resistance training output by 7% compared to last time, by that score right there. You're done. I don't care if you have another set. You don't. Done. You did exactly what we wanted you to do. And if you do any more, you're now violating everything that we have from our principles in terms of how much you need to progress. So, nope, you're done. Or the other way around, listen, man, I don't care like that you finished your workout. You haven't finished your workout. You haven't done anything. Like, you're not done until that score gets to this number right here. Because it just calls you out on it. And it's super cool, like for pro sports like GMs or something. Like, I can see if someone's working out at Hype Gym right now and they're doing the leg press, I can pull it up on my phone and I can actually see their phone right now.
That's so important.
And if in the future I'll be able to have their name on there. So if I'm like an NBA GM and I need to know if this guy's doing his workout and he's supposed to be there in the gym right now,
you got the data.
He'll be right on my phone. I can literally watch him do his set right in front of me. And if I know the number he's supposed to hit, I can see if he hits his number. Or I might be able to call him right on the phone right now and be like, hey, what happened on that set of leg press?
Don't be a bitch, just do it.
So those are the two big ones: strength score and rethinking the big patterns. And you know, I'm hoping that I can affect the industry from a biomechanics standpoint and pointing out like a lot of things that matter and how to coach things at a really high level in terms of positions and specificity of tissues, and appreciating the way in which like a pelvis and a thorax and a skull move collectively in 3 dimensions and what drives it, and the mechanistic side of things. And then simultaneously over on this quantitative side, be able to provide a tool that can guide people as to what is really happening from an output standpoint, that is a variable that actually really matters, rather than, you know,
measurable, not based on like whatever. You can see it, you can prove it, and it's there, which is the most important part, actually.
Yep.
I'm actually looking forward to that, as I'm looking for the book and for the seminars we're going to be doing next year, and also the webinar that's going to be happening in 2020.
Yeah, I am too, man. It sounds like great projects. Sounds like a lot of fun, and just getting out there and interacting with some new people.
Pat, thank you so much for your time. Keep making a change and inspiring everybody, and, you know, clearing up the bullshit out there.
I know you guys,
because I said I'm going to travel to New York and see you.
That'd be great. Anytime, man. Would love to have you.
And looking forward to the things that are coming.
Rocco, thank you so much for having me on, and really looking forward to all the stuff we're going to do in the future together. So, hey, I know you're a little later on in the day, but I hope you get to enjoy what you have left in your weekend, and I'll do the same on my end.
You too. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, man. We'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.